Hi, I'm Tony, and I'm the founder of Cars Caffe in northern New Jersey. I didn't grow up in an automotive environment, automotive household. It's a hobby that just kind of naturally happened, and I'm glad it did, because the opportunities that opened up and the lifestyle that has resulted as a result of the hobby has been life-changing, and that's no exaggeration. I did not grow up in a car household. My parents were not automotive enthusiasts. My friends growing up weren't automotive enthusiasts, but it's something, I've always had a fascination with vehicles and machines that moved, whether it's an airplane or a train or a car or a helicopter or what have you. So around the time when I was early on in elementary school or somewhere in there, my mom actually purchased a PlayStation for us as our DVD player. And since it was a PlayStation, may as well get a game for it, and that game was Gran Turismo. And that's the game that kind of woke me up into the whole automotive culture and the car lifestyle and racing and things like that. And soon enough, I found myself following motorsports, NASCAR, Formula One, and sports car racing. And I quickly developed a fascination with the Corvette, because that was one of my first cars on Gran Turismo, and it became my first sports car in real life. So as I got older, they're still toys, they just got bigger and more expensive. And I think most of us car guys and gals can relate to that. So as time went on, I became interested in the classic car scene, the muscle car scene. I started to go to a couple local car shows a year. Wasn't really too involved in the car community. This is middle school, high school, that era. But in 2006, I went to London for the first time. And the thing that stands out in my mind that blew me away on that trip are the cars that I saw there. There are Ferraris and Porsches and Aston Martins at every corner, whether it's new or old. And that kind of woke me up to a whole new level, a whole new genre of car, so to speak, where I'm still a Corvette guy, I'm still a classic car guy, but this just introduced a whole nother level, a whole nother world almost of cars. And so that got me in. And the thing is, growing up in northern New Jersey, where we've got a lot of cool cars in the area, there were no events to go to. So the concept of Cars and Coffee was introduced to me some years later when I believe I was in college. I was introduced to a Cars and Coffee in central New Jersey, and a family friend of mine actually, she worked for him. Her boss owned a Ferrari Enzo and a few other cars. So she told me one time to get in touch with him, and he said the best way to get involved in the car community is to check out this Cars and Coffee group called Cars and Croissants. And so I attended a couple of their events, and finally Rich, the gentleman, was kind enough to invite me over to his house. And again, that's another experience where it introduced me to a whole new segment in the car world, where you kind of have access to some of the world's most expensive and craziest cars. So it got the wheels to turn in my head where, well, if they're doing this in central Jersey, who's gonna do it in northern New Jersey? So college student me decided to take it on, and everybody thought I was crazy. My mom laughed at me, my friends laughed at me. Why are you gonna waste so much of your time putting on these events that bring nothing to you and that you don't even know if they're gonna be successful? Most people who start things like this, and it's true with any business venture, any venture in life, most of them fail. But I knew that this was gonna be different. Our first event was designed to be a charity fundraiser after Hurricane Sandy, because this was right after Sandy. And I soon realized that it was going to be a lot more work than I thought I was in for. We had 7 cars at our first event. I can name you all 7 of them, exactly what they were. I still know, I think all 7 of those owners I still know personally. So I spent that off season, because that was December. I spent that off season really working hard. I'm like, all right, we got to come up with a network. We got to come up with a database. We got to know the owners. We're not just going to host events. We're going to know the owners. We're going to know the people that come to these things. And I think that's what's special about this group, is that, you know, some 5 years later, it's really about the people and the relationships. I would say much more than the cars. The cars are cool, and that's what this hobby is, but the people makes it much more special. That's what separates it for me, and that's what separates it for a lot of people that follow us and that go to events like Jason's and events like mine and anywhere in between. So that's how it started, and I started in my high school parking lot. I got permission from the assistant principal. He's like, you have one shot. If we have any incidents, you're done. And I could safely say that we never had an incident at Ridgewood High School, or knock on wood, we've been pretty lucky over the years. So that's where it started. And then I always knew that I wanted to separate it from other Cars and Coffees that started popping up across the country. So I decided that we had to do something to separate ourselves from other Cars and Coffees, other car clubs, other events around the country. And I knew that there were some collections in the area, and it took years, literally, of who knows who and how can I get in touch with this collector and what businesses do we want to partner with us. We're here at Motor Car Manor doing this shoot right now, and Matt, the owner, has been very generous to me, very nice to me over the years. He's Automotive Storage, just a little plug there for him. So he's one of the supporters that he's been around since pretty early on, that we've been doing this since the Ridgewood High School days. And you find out some people are on your side, some people aren't. It's like, again, like any venture in life. But the people that do support you, they see your vision, they see what you want to do, and so they're willing to help you. They're willing to show you some of their contacts, and so eventually you start tapping into some of these collectors who, again, have become my really good friends outside of the car world. And then you have some of these cars showing up, Maserati MC12s and McLaren P1s, and this and that and the other thing, and that to me is what separates us. Not to totally brag about it, but to see two Ferrari F50s parked next to each other, or an Enzo and a Bugatti, those are the things that we're doing here in northern New Jersey, where nobody knew these cars even existed because the owners really had no events. There's nowhere to go with them, aside from maybe a concourse once a year. And now we're doing something, we're tapping into their hobby, right? Just like my hobby. So when you share a hobby with somebody, you're presenting a value to them, and you're giving them a good excuse to take their cars out, to meet new people of the same passion as them. And so that's something that I really take seriously, and that's why I say the relationships it's more important than the cars that are showing up, because anyone can put on a car event, but it's more about the people, and that's what I've always tried to stick with that. So after our humble beginnings at Ridgewood High School, we slowly but surely started to outgrow that location, and we had done a couple of events here or there. The first time we ever did a dealer event, or an event at any sort of business for that matter, was, I guess it was 2014. I was approached by Maserati of Bergen County, who had just opened their beautiful showroom on Route 17, and they wanted to do an open house with us. I guess they saw the value in doing an event, which, to be honest, not all dealerships do. So we came up with a plan, we sat down, we put it together, and that event, I think, really took us to the next level. We're not just, Ridgewood, New Jersey Cars and Coffee anymore. We started to get a couple hundred cars out at a time, and 3 events into the Maserati Bergen County is the infamous day where we had the 3 McLaren P1s show up together, where they were parked side by side, and that was the first time we went viral. We had cars, photographers and enthusiasts and owners in Westchester and Long Island and down in central New Jersey who started hearing about this. To this day, I'm not sure how many clubs have had 3 P1s together, and I do take a lot of pride in that. And again, all 3 owners have been gracious enough to come back and bring some of their other cars out. So that was one of the days where it kind of woke me up. It's like, all right, we could take this to the next level, and that's something I still think today. So after some of the dealer events, I'll collaborate with anyone really. I mean, you throw 10 ideas out there, 1 or 2 are probably going to stick, and that's kind of what happens. So we started to come up with some more locations, and as the locations grow, things get a little more complicated, and I've introduced the VIP parking for some of the, specialty cars that may show up. Someone brings an F50 out, they don't want to park in maybe necessarily in a tight parking lot, so you have to take care of these guys. You have to take care of owners and some of your friends and things like that. But that's true in any venture, like I've said already. But so as the locations grew, the responsibility grows. Now you have to provide liability insurance, you have to provide this and that and the other thing. So it becomes a little more expensive, and you have to have more support from your sponsors and some of your other partners. And to be honest, it almost becomes more like car shows, but it's still, you still want to stick to your roots and what makes this different than most car shows. So we have some locations that can fit 400 or 500 cars a week now, and I'd say we're probably getting 200 to 400 cars on any given event. Having started the Cars Caffe, which at the time wasn't named or branded, when I did as a college student, I didn't have a sports car. I kind of got a lot of slack for that. People would make fun of me that I'd be showing up in, my beater, my daily driver. So I always knew that the Corvette was probably going to be my first car. So after a year of searching for the right color, it had to be a manual, obviously, right, as your first car. I finally found the car I ended up buying, and a good friend of mine through the club came with me. We drove 3-4 hours to go see it, and I purchased the car on site, and that's pretty much how I learned to drive manual. A lot of people have stories of how they learned to drive manual. I had a friend who let me play with his car for a few minutes, but for all practical purposes, I learned to drive manual driving my 1994 Corvette home 100 miles from Pennsylvania. And it's funny because that night was the Ridgewood Car Show, and so a lot of our members, a lot of our friends saw me in that car that night, and that was a cool moment. I'll never forget that. Just that whole drive home. That was a special day. Still have the car 5 years later. That's probably a forever car. I don't really see why I would sell it. At one point I had a 993 Porsche, which I adore, and to this day I think is one of the best driving cars ever built. So I've always been a Corvette guy. Porsche, I really woke up to Porsches, somewhere along over the years, and it's a lot of fun. I get made fun of a lot for not driving my cars, even the Porsche when I had it, or the Corvette or whatever. But I kind of like it to be special when I take the car out, or when I take the cars out, and driving it twice a month or whatever, and putting 1,000 miles a year on it. For me, that's what I want. I completely respect people who daily drive their sports cars or their supercars or their classic cars. I think that's great. I live up in the Northeast, we're in northern New Jersey where we are. We have 4 months of the year where the car's out of commission anyway, so I kind of like where I'm at, driving it a couple times a month and making it special, and going on a group drive or something with your friends, and really, really experiencing what the car should be. So when I take my car out, I'm not sitting in traffic commuting with it. I'm taking it out on the back roads that I enjoy, and that to me is where I get enjoyment out of my car. So Corvette's a keeper. Would love it to add a Z06 at some point, we talked about this earlier, Porsche 997, which I still think is arguably the perfect sports car. So that's where I'm going next. The Ferraris are definitely on the list in the future, and may have a couple exotics along the way. So that's kind of a little bit of my car background, and that's the Cars Caffe mobile, I guess you could say. One of my greatest satisfactions of putting on Cars Caffe or any event we do, whether it's a more organized show, which we do a couple times a year, or a drive, or just again the Tices Corner Cars and Cafes, it's really rewarding to see not only the owners who appreciate meeting like-minded car guys and car gals, but I look at the 9-year-olds, the 10-year-olds, the kids that show up, and I see myself in them. And I wish there were events like this when I was growing up, because again, I had no exposure to any of these cars, and there'd be a once-a-year car show here or there, but it's the blessing and the curse of social media, right? So you find out about these events, and I hope there's, and I know there are, but I hope there's 9-year-old version, younger me's out there that can really appreciate what they're looking at, and appreciate the owners that are taking their cars out, and some of these events that they're able to go to for free, really. Because Cars and Coffee, the whole point is not to spend a fortune to attend it. It's informal and it's fun. So it's very satisfying after every event to kind of look back at the pictures, look back at the videos, and see you made someone's day, and that's what it's all about. And we've kind of been able to take that to the next level with the Garden State Plaza event that we do with Top Gear Imports. We've done a few times now, and I could have never in a million years believed that we would ever host an event with thousands and thousands and thousands of cars, not to mention some of the caliber of cars that people are bringing out for that one. And also to send it's great to bring the owners a network of people that have the same hobby as them and the same passion, and sometimes the same cars as them, although that they wouldn't have met otherwise. But also the younger people. I think it's very cool to bring bring these kids, the younger generation, exposure to these cars, some of their dream cars, some cars they probably never even heard of or dreamed of seeing. And people have told me that, they're like, I never dreamed of being up close with a Ferrari Enzo or a Bugatti Veyron, or and I appreciate those who can appreciate different kinds of cars, and American cars and European cars and Japanese cars, and it's cool to have a central place for everybody that everybody feels welcome. So that to me is one of the things I get the most satisfaction out of, is seeing the younger generation appreciate these cars and have first-hand access to them. And also to give back, and the Garden State Plaza event that we've done with Top Gear Imports is never in a million years would I have ever imagined having thousands of cars at an event that I've been fortunate enough to host. But yeah, here we are, and we're also able to donate tens of thousands of dollars to St. Jude, and it's nice to know that there's people benefiting from this on a first-hand level and also on a financial level that really need it, that help people in need. And that's something that you never want to lose touch with, and I'll always if I hear about a kid who's sick and wants a ride in a McLaren or something, you make that happen. And to be honest, those are some of the most fun times I've ever had, is when you can share this, especially with people less fortunate. So on a personal level, that's probably the most rewarding. It's not the money, it's not, that's not why this started. that's got to be it. Because, you know, I like to believe that there's a 9-year-old me out there that I didn't have any car events when I was 9, 10 years old, and I wish I did. So hopefully there's me's out there now that are able to experience these cars firsthand, and, you know, we got to keep this hobby going, right, for the next generation. It's almost like our responsibility as a car guy or car gal to keep the next generation interested and want to keep these cars that we love, that not only the new stuff, but what we grew up with and what our previous generation grew up with. So I was fortunate enough to meet Matt a few years ago, probably 5 years ago now. Just, you know, he knew about Cars Caffe, and he'd probably attended a few events before I even knew him, really. But he kind of pitched me the idea of, you know, being involved with us and sponsoring us and supporting us. And it's become one of the best relationships I've built in the car world is Motor Car Manor, where we're filming today. He's, like I said, he's been a big supporter of this. He's one of the good guys in the car world, and his operation, to be honest, is one of the most underrated in the tri-state area. And he's got, you know, probably 100 cars in here that most people don't even know about. And that's kind of the cool thing about what, you know, Cars Caffe is. It all started on, I know this guy's got these cars. Nobody knows they're here, but, you know, you kind of hear through the grapevine these cars are out there. And it's the same here. It's the same with some of the businesses in our area. And Matt is certainly at the top of that list. Where do I see this going? I'd like to continue the sort of informal stuff, because I know a lot of people really like that. They like that I can come when I want to and leave when I want to. So I like to keep that going. I do want to start doing more specialty events. We introduced Festival Italiano 2 years ago, and that will continue this year and hopefully for years to come. I see that event really growing in the coming years. Obviously, the Garden State Plaza events are quite large, so there will always be a big season opener and a big season finale. And every now and then, not to the extent that Jason does, but we do some drives a couple times a year. So I want to continue to do more specialty events, more private events. More events that are community driven, where, you know, you really get, I think the drives in particular, where you really meet some of your close friends in the car world. So I want to continue to branch out and do some more specialty events, whether it be, you know, supporting some of these businesses that have supported us, or other community events. That it's a lifestyle. It's not just cars. You know, you start to realize that a lot of your friends in the car world have similar hobbies outside of the car world as you. So I want to do some different kinds of events, and some of them are already in the works, and we'll reveal them when the time comes. And some of them are going to be more larger scale events and more on a national stage, and that's part of my vision too. So there's a long-term vision. There's some things that we'll discuss as the time comes, but it's exciting to have something to look forward to, and I think that's been my driving force since the beginning of this. Well, that's a little bit about the Cars Caffe world. It's been a whirlwind to be able to do this, and I appreciate every day and never take it for granted. I thank Jason for the opportunity. Again, drives are fun. Jason does a phenomenal job with it. I look forward to collaborating in the future. Thanks, Jason.